Good day everyone, I'm Clem from clemtravlog. As the weather recently in Melbourne is not that great, I am unable to go out for a ride. So I decided to bring you an additional knowledge episode by providing you 50 interesting facts of Melbourne you may not know, which able to get you to know more about Melbourne. Without further ado, let's do it now. It is nothing to do with Bruce Wayne, but Melbourne was once unofficially known as Batmania, named by one of the founders, John Batman. It was only until 1837 the name Melbourne was given by then Governor of New South Wales, Sir Richard Brooke. Apart from hello, you can always hear ni hao, namaste, or yasu on the street. Apparently, Melbourne is the second largest city in the world which greet hello in different language. It is because 38% of Melbourneans are not born in Australia. With the diversity cultural of Melbourne, it brings different culture and religion to Melbourne with harmony. The invention of the world's first electrical rail was in 1889 in Melbourne, and it was credited to Arthur Arnold. The suburb of Fitzroy was the first suburb of Melbourne created in 1839. When it was first created, it was originally known as Newtown. The current name Fitzroy was named after one of the governors of New South Wales, Sir Charles Augusto Fitzroy. One of the most iconic bushrangers in Australian history, Ned Kelly, was hanged in Old Melbourne Gaol in 1880. Melbourne tram system is the largest tram system outside Europe, the fourth largest system in the world. It consists approximately 1,700 tram stops across 24 routes, with the combination length of more than 250 kilometers. The internationally distributed brand of Australian beer, Foster's Lager, was invented in Melbourne, created by two American brothers, William and Ralph, in 1886, who arrived in Melbourne from New York. Melbourne was the capital city of Australia between 1901 and 1927, until the capital moved to Canberra. Melbourne actually has the largest population of Greeks of any other city outside Greece. Famous K-pop girls group Blackpink's member, Rosé, was once lived in Melbourne. Born in New Zealand and moved to Melbourne with her family at the age of 7, she attended Kew East Primary School and Canterbury Girls Secondary School before she pursued her singing career in South Korea. Melbourne is the home of the tallest building in Australia, the Australia 108. Luna Park, located in St Kilda, is the oldest privately owned theme park in the world. The first ute was invented in 1929 by James Freeland Leacock. It is a utility vehicle with a flat bed at the back. Famous, iconic, heritage-listed Queen Victoria Market was built on top of a former cemetery in Melbourne, the Old Melbourne Cemetery. During the construction, many graves are interred to other cemeteries, but there still remain approximately 9,000 bodies buried under the shed and the car park of the market today. The first railway line and telegram line in Australia were established in Melbourne. The railway line connecting between Flinders Street Station and Port Melbourne Station, and the telegram line connecting between Melbourne and Williamstown, both of them established in the year of 1854. Melbourne was an actual scene of discovering UFO. It was encountered in Clayton South in 1966. By more than 200 students and teachers from two Victorian state schools, witnessing a UFO decreasing into a nearby open grassland in the Grange Reserve. Australia's famous retailer Coles and JB Hi-Fi were founded in Collingwood in 1914 and Kilo East in 1974 respectively. Today location of the corner of Collins Street and Swanston Street of Melbourne was the first place in Australia to be installed the traffic light in 1928. Famous flight recorder black box was invented in 1958 by Dr. David Warren. Melbourne was the first city outside Europe and North America to host Summer Olympic Games. Melbourne hosted the Summer Olympic Games in 1956. Melbourne was declared as a city by Queen Victoria in 1847. First interment, child of James Goodman, was carried out at Bury Hill in 1836, the location of Bury Hill, which is today Flagstaff Garden. In 1856, stonemason won the 8-hour stay campaign at Parliament House to protest their daily working hours. The campaign placed Australia as the frontrunner of progressive labour movements. Moreover, Sunshine Harvester Judgment happened in 1907, was a landmark Australian labour law to impose the basis for settling Australia's minimum wages standard. Melbourne is officially known as the fox capital of the world, with the record of 6 to 23 foxes per square meter in the urban city area. With the name kiwi, you may think it is related to New Zealand. Eventually, kiwi shoe polish was invented in Melbourne in 1906 by William Ramsay. Melbourne was once nicknamed as Melbourne. It was in the late 19th century, with the population of Melbourne was growing extremely fast, but without proper sewer system in place. The streets were flushed with rubbish and human waste. The problem only being solved until the completion of the Western Treatment Plant and the main R4 sewer in the 1890s. Flinders Street Station is the oldest railway station in Australia, opened in 1854. Referred to as Princess of Pop by the European press, famous singer and actress Kylie Minogue was born in 1968 in Melbourne. The idea of McCafe, part of McDonald's, was actually introduced in Melbourne when the world's first McCafe opened on Swanston Street in 1993. Bordered with Elsternwick, Caulfield South, Brighton and Brighton East, Gardenville is the smallest suburb in Melbourne, at just 26 hectares in size. Although Flinders Street Station is the oldest railway station in Australia, but most people didn't know the design of the station is actually a mistake. The current design of the Flinders Street Station was actually intended for Chhatrapati Shivaji Terminus in Mumbai of India, and the current design of the Chhatrapati Shivaji Terminus in Mumbai was actually meant for Flinders Street Station. Apparently, both designs were from the same firm and were accidentally switched. It is the oldest zoo still operating in Australia, having opened in 1862. Even though dumpling is a traditional Chinese food, but the famous Australian type unique deep fried savoury snack dim sum that only available in Australia was invented in Melbourne by Chinese chef William Wing for his restaurant Wing Lee with the inspiration of Chinese traditional dumpling. Not only Melbourne has its own name before the official name came in, the surrounding suburb, South Melbourne, East Melbourne and North Melbourne, has their own name as well before the current name came in place. East Melbourne was known as Eastern Hill before 1837, North Melbourne was known as Hawthorne before 1874, and South Melbourne was known as Emerald Hill before 1883. George Nicholas made the first Australian aspirin in tablet form in Melbourne and registered in 1917 as Aspro. Melbourne is the only city in the world with 5 international standard sporting facilities on the fringe of the Central Business District: the Melbourne Cricket Ground, Malvern Stadium, Rod Laver Arena, Hisense Arena, and Olympic Park in Melbourne Park. Pham Ngoc Han, or known as Honey for her stage name, a member of a famous rising K-pop girls group, New Jeans. She was born in Melbourne. Thus, another member of the group, Danielle, was actually born in Newcastle of Australia. Commonly, people thought of four famous streets in CBD: King Street, William Street, Queen Street, and Elizabeth Street are named after King William and Queen Elizabeth II. It was actually a huge mistake by the people nowadays. Eventually, William Street is the only correct one, named after King William IV, the reigning monarch of United Kingdom at that time. King Street was actually named after the former governor of New South Wales, Philip Gidley King. Queen Street was actually named after Queen Adelaide, the wife of King William IV and the Queen of United Kingdom during the street was named. And Elizabeth Street was actually named by Sir Richard Brooke after his wife, Elizabeth Jane Brooke. Bella Guerin, born in 1858 in Williamstown, was the first Australian woman to earn an university degree in Australia. She was awarded a Bachelor of Arts honours degree from Melbourne University in 1883. Truganina, Tullamarine, and Derrimut are the only suburb in Melbourne actually named after real Aboriginal personnel. The suburb of Truganina was actually named after Truganini, who believed to be the last full-blood Tasman Aboriginal who had visited the area. Tullamarine was named after Tullamarina, a young Wurundjeri Aboriginal who notable from escape and burned down the first Melbourne Gaol in 1838. And the suburb of Derrimut was actually named after Derrimut, an Aboriginal elder who played a crucial role during the early period of the European colonization of Victoria. Melbourne is the home of Melbourne Cricket Ground, the largest stadium by its capacity in Australia and Southern Hemisphere. With the size of 100,024, it is bigger than any stadium used by football club in Europe. It is Australia's oldest professional orchestra, established in 1906. Australian Notes, which is made in plastic, was invented in Melbourne, released in 1988. Since then, the technology was used in more than 30 denominations in the world. While drinking culture is a famous nightlife activities in Melbourne nowadays, no one actually imagined pub and bars used to being forced to stop operation at 6 o'clock. Eventually, this liquor licensing law was introduced in 1916 to tackle the heavy drinking culture in Australia. Only until 1966, iconic Westgate Bridge crossing the Yarra River was once collapsed in 1970 before the completion. The span of the Westgate Bridge collapsed and killed 35 construction workers resting below the bridge. First Australian-made Holden car, 48215, was actually built in Fisherman Bend in Port Melbourne in 1948. Coulter Park in northwestern Melbourne is the only suburb in Melbourne without a single resident. The suburb was actually zoned for future industrial usage, and the only building structure available in the suburb now is the Calder Highway Rest Stop and the Coulter Park Raceway. Famous Australian chocolate, Fredo Frog, was created in Melbourne by Harry Melbourne in 1930. Most major streets in Melbourne laid during the early settlements are 99 feet wide. It was designed by then Surveyor General Robert Holder to make sure a 16 horses carriage could do a U-turn on the street. In 1770, famous British navigator James Cook arrived at the eastern coast of Australia, but never landed in Melbourne. This actually makes people think that the James Cook cottage located in Fitzroy Garden isn't real. Apparently, the building itself was the original building built by Cook family. It was originally built in 1755 by the parents of James Cook in Yorkshire of England, and then it was deconstructed brick by brick and packed into 253 cases and 40 barrels, then shipped to Melbourne in 1934 and reconstructed on today's spot in Fitzroy Garden by Australian philosopher Sir Russell Greenwald. Alright, these are the 50 interesting facts of Melbourne that you may not know. Of course, there's still a lot of interesting facts that I didn't mention. I think some of the facts that I mentioned actually surprise you. Hope you like it and you're able to know more about Melbourne. Thank you for watching. Until next time. Bye bye.
It's finished. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to click the like, subscribe the channel, and share out. Leave a comment if you have any feedback for us. I'll see you next time. Bye.